Welcome to One Up Fantasy, helping you one up the fantasy football competition. For the latest in Chicago sports news, visit ChiCitySports.com. And now, here are the hosts of One Up Fantasy, Stephen Johnson and Chris Jackle. Kaboom!
Good evening, one and all. Welcome into another episode of One Up Fantasy here on ChiCitySports.com and the Tape Never Lies Network. I'm Stephen Johnson. He is Chris Jackle. I am exhausted by all means. I am dying today. I think that's the best way to put it. Fresh off of an 8-hour drive from Pittsburgh.
Oh, I thought you were with Aaron Rodgers. Jesus. All right, sorry.
Oh, God, keep him away from me. I don't need COVID.
Sorry, bad joke. Bad joke. But welcome home. Struggle Bus City over there in your neck of the woods, huh?
Yeah. Could have been a hell of a lot worse had I just continued drinking following that debacle last night. But, you go with the flow and can't win them all, I guess. My wife's happy. The Steelers fan in the house is happy. But
I'll say this. It was a little like Rosie Perez in your ear, I hope, afterwards. Like sometimes when you lose, you really win. And sometimes when you win, you really lose, So I felt like last night it was one of those moments, and it was just like, thank you, Justin Fields. And we were talking before the show, just seeing a Bears quarterback standing in the pocket and just trying to deliver without having to. It was just a beautiful thing. And, if we actually had a head coach that game planned a long time ago, and this much better experience for you, if I'll say, But, I'm glad you went. It sounds like it was a good time. You saw a hell of a game. Good for your wife, But.
Yeah, I mean, because there was a solid 4 minutes there where she wouldn't even say a word to me after Mooney caught that touchdown, and I'm like, all right, well, this is going to be a great night.
But Bryce, I feel you, Bryce. I like what you're saying down there. It would have been nice to get the win, though. I mean, what the fuck? I mean, shit, we play to win the game, But I don't disagree. Seeing Justin Fields make those leaps and bounds over the last 3 weeks has just been tremendous. Yeah, fantasy impact included.
Which
we
talked a little about here.
We could kind of segue into that, just briefly touch on that, with his relevance. 2 weeks in a row, he's got over almost 650 to all total yards. Fantasy points alone, he's got some touchdowns. He's there, I think, right? Like he's top 10 2 weeks in a row, I think. What are your thoughts?
That's the crazy thing about this is over the last 2 weeks, Justin Fields is the QB3 in the league, which is crazy to think. He's behind Jimmy Garoppolo and Justin Herbert. Jimmy Garoppolo has been a monster himself.
My savior. My savior.
With the way that he's been playing. Really, you look at the top five overall in terms of what their average points per game are, and it's an interesting list. It's definitely an interesting list. Obviously, Tom Brady and Lamar Jackson up there as well, but it's like you mentioned, being able to see him put it all together, standing back there in the pocket, and being more willing to take off with the ball as well in the correct situations. Seeing everything come together for him is really turned a new leaf for him. And you look at the back end of the schedule for the Bears and what it sets up as for Justin Fields as a fantasy quarterback. It's relatively promising. You have Baltimore. They've been struggling over the last couple weeks. Then you follow that up with Detroit on Thanksgiving. Arizona, who's looked a little lost without J.J. Watt there since his injury. Then you get at Lambeau against Green Bay.
And then it's the Packers.
You just hope. You hope. And then Minnesota, Seattle, New York Giants, and then Minnesota again. There's really not a game there in this back half where you think, oh God, what's happening?
It's a lot of football too.
It is, and it's against very promising matchups from Fields' end in terms of the progression that we've seen, and against teams that have struggled against the run and against running quarterbacks. And so the question, and I know we talked about this a little bit before the show, is where you kind of rank him. Is he in that QB1 territory? Is he a borderline QB1, QB2? Is he a little bit further down just because you can't necessarily trust the coaching staff to do the right thing week to week? I mean, hell, it wasn't really until the second half that we saw things go the correct way for the offense. And so there's all these questions. So where is he at in your mind right now?
Well, the X factor for us is fucking Nagy, so
Right.
I'm going to say fire Nagy. Let's get that out of the way. Let's get rid of this fucking bum, and with Nagy gone, Justin Fields looks a hell of a lot nicer. With him there, he still looks fantastic. Top 10, like we talked about the last 2 weeks, fantasy relevance is phenomenal for anyone, let alone a rookie who's playing in its fourth and fifth game, I believe. I could be off on my numbers. Sorry. But I think he comes off the bye week in a top 15 kind of category. And that is awesome for anyone, really, because he's still out there in like 81% of the leagues. Right. So you have a real chance to go get a guy that top 15 quarterback week 11. That's nice to be able to throw out there if you're dealing with, like, say, Kyler Murray's injury kind of lingers, or, just re-injures himself, or you've been streaming all day long and you've been riding the Jimmy Garoppolo train. And next thing you know, he just, falls off. Jimmy G. There's a stiff wind in San Francisco off the bay and he sprains his fucking ankle. And next thing you know, you got Trey Lance back out there. But I think he's top 15. How about yourself? I know,
I think from the rushing upside alone, you can definitely put him into that territory. You see it with Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia, where he does not bring much to the table in terms of the passing game. But as long as he continues to pile up the rushing yards, what's stopping him from putting up top 10 weeks, week after week, if they allow him to run the ball? And that's the biggest question, is will they allow him to continue running the ball? And I think there is that realization from the coaching perspective that, yeah, they need to get him to run the ball, because not only is it opening things up for the passing game, but defenses are on their heels. You see it. And you see it rather consistently. We saw it last night consistently, where they started to back off a little bit because he was finding the open men. And I think another guy, and we might talk about him a little bit later here as well, it really benefited Cole Kmet, because it didn't necessarily allow the linebacker to sit back on Kmet down the middle of the field. You had to keep an eye on Fields. And so it opens up a new avenue for the Bears offense that they need to utilize. They can't be afraid of sitting here and saying this, he needs to be a passer first. Like, no, that's not Justin Fields' game. That's not what made him so successful at Ohio State. But the rushing upside, you just have to unlock it week after week. And if you can do that, I think he has the top 10 potential every week the rest of the season.
The problem is we got fucking Matt Nagy, man. And with him there, there's no faith. And I hate to say it that way. And I'm not trying to be a, party pooper.
Debbie Downer.
It's frustrating as all hell, because, I'm not trying to, Greg Braggs, if, he's been pounding the pavement, since, if he got the preseason reps, we'd be it's mind numbing to think that we even had this debate that early on, seeing what we saw last night, even the week before, and even flashes when he just got out there. It's just frustrating. And we got these two fucking assholes running the show here. And it's like, go fuck yourselves, dude. I'm sorry. But as I give the finger, about, you can't even see me doing it, but there you go, but oh my God. But all of that being said, we have a quarterback in Chicago, but also based for our show, fantasy relevance is there. And it's nice to be a fan, being able to get them on your squad now, week 10, waiver claim, fab, whatever you got to do. I try to lock them up if you're not sitting pretty, if you're not comfortable with your quarterback situation. You got tons of buys coming up, and I think, we got guys on buys this week. There's some good teams on buys. You may need a guy. And so I think, just to think, you got the Bears obviously on a buy, Burrow, who do we got? Houston. Those quarterbacks don't matter. And you got, David Jones or Mr. Johnson out there. But so you may need somebody. But week 11, week 12, and week 13, there's some other strong quarterbacks that are on buys.
And that's the other thing too, is a lot of guys might sit here and say, well, he's on a bye this week, I don't need to prioritize him as an option. I mean, Sam Darnold's going to be out for a while, and there's still, for whatever reason, a lot of people rostering Sam Darnold, even though he hasn't been relevant. If you have him on your roster, Justin Fields is a great alternative to adding that backup quarterback spot. I mean, again, looking at these roster numbers, he's got a 26% in Yahoo and a 19% on ESPN. Like, he's probably available in your league.
People will be overpaying for sure, right, Steve?
Yep. Absolutely. And so it comes down to, you gotta strike while the iron's hot, and don't necessarily wait it out either. The hype might be there, but I think there's a little bit cooling of it in the fact that the Bears just don't play this week. And obviously everyone hates bye weeks, everyone hates injuries, and I think there's a fear out there just for the fact that there's been so many extremes with both of those things this year that it's like, okay, well, I don't want to pick up a bye week guy. I can't do that. I need to have an option this week in case something goes wrong.
This is where you sneak him in. This is where you grab him. It's pure freaking opportunistic. Yep. It's great GMing for a fantasy squad. It's like foresight 101. You always look at the bye weeks once they happen, because they're not at the top of the list for projected points and all the other shit. And people typically just go there, and if you don't click and you try to maneuver through that to see who's available that's not playing, you're doing yourself a disservice. And, I'm glad you brought that up, Stephen. That's a really good point. For newer people that just don't realize that, you can do that on the app and look to see who's in a buy and find out, oh shit, maybe I could actually save myself some money here and throw in $20 less or what, be like me and have $13 going into week 10. But hey, sitting over there in second place, but what are you going to do over there in the TTNL league division?
I don't even want to look and see what place I'm in the TTNL league. I know I lost. It's not pretty. I am 4-5. I'm just gonna let that sit because I've seen 4 and 5 alone is like killing.
7-2 over here, just so you know.
I'm sure you're very proud of that.
And I just fucking dog walked Logan out in the Philippines, so I hope that fucking water's a little chilly over there this morning.
I'm in 7th, so I'm not doing too hot.
Oh,
I'm tied with Claudio, which that's the last thing I need. So,
you, Claudio, if you see this, I'm thinking of you, buddy. And Ralphie over here, he's trying to always throw salt in my game in the chat. He's always like, fucking Jackle, he's the most lucky fucking guy out there. I'm like, well, this lucky son of a bitch is 7-2, second place, baby.
Karma.
All right, let's do a little. And one other guy, before we're talking about guys taking advantage of situations, Justin Fields obviously is doing that.
Yep.
Going to shift out west. Arizona. James Conner. Got Mr. Edmonds out with a high ankle sprain. I think it's something that, he's obviously rostered on a lot of teams, James Conner's, but he's a guy that I think you may pay through the nose to get him, because he's hot. He's dominating right now. He's tied with Derrick Henry for total touchdowns. Total rushing touchdowns at 10, but he's got 11 on the year. I think he's a guy that if you have him on your team, you definitely stepped in it, because he, in a good way, because he is definitely balling out. Last week, 21 carries, 96 yards, 2 tuds, and then he had the 5 catches for 77 yards and another score. A nice little schedule. They got week 10, they play Carolina, they play Seattle week 11. Then they have that bye. And you may see Edmonds come back week 13, but they're saying he may be out for multiple games. And I like Conner. He's 26. He had some injuries. He's a cancer survivor. I fucking love him. He balled out in Pittsburgh, sorry. And he is a guy that I think is someone to really keep a lookout for. He's a sell high guy too. If you have him and you need somebody and need something else, he's a piece that you could definitely put together in a package and go get a player that you really want, because he's somebody that is, he's going to put up points for the next 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if I would necessarily want to trade him, just for those reasons that you outlined. I mean, you talk about a high ankle sprain. If it's severe enough, I mean, we could be talking upwards of 6 weeks, and in that reality, that gets you into the playoffs for fantasy. And a lot of people forget just how good James Conner was at catching the ball out of the backfield as well. That Edmonds was always the guy in this offense that was set up for that role. But looking back to his Pittsburgh days, in 2018, he had 55 catches. 2019, he had 34 catches in 10 games. And then he had 35 catches in 13 games last year.
He's 100% this year, 10 for 10.
Yeah, I mean, he if he gets more involved and he gets back to that role, which honestly, the Cardinals offense is set up for that type of back.
Absolutely. That great point.
Connor fits, honestly, to a T. He fits. And it's nice to see him get that opportunity, because really, prior to this injury with Edmonds on Sunday, he was a very touchdown dependent guy. And he's had 6 touchdowns in his last 3 weeks. And so that's obviously been a plus there. But now we get the yards. And like you mentioned, the schedule coming up, combining those two things. And again, this is a guy that was a second, third round pick when he was with Pittsburgh in his heyday back in 2018. So the opportunity is there for him to recollect that upside with this situation that's in front of him, because Eno Benjamin is not going to be a guy that's going to steal significant carries away from James Conner.
I hate that hype right now, too. I feel that's just like some clickbait material. I've seen people put that out. I'm like, you really, have you watched what fucking he's done the last 3 weeks? I mean, what do we, come on. He's clearly the bell cow out there in Arizona. Yep. They know what they have. Shanahan, or not Shanahan, what the fuck's his name? Help me out, the coach there with the nice drug dealer.
Cliff Kingsbury.
Thank you. Clint Kingsbury. He's with the drug den out in his draft house they showed. It was like, Jesus Christ, he's running kilos out of there. But they know when they have a good thing out there. They have a good combination. It sounds like D-Hop and Murray are both healthy. They went from out to questionable today. My app was blowing up saying, "Oh, they're back." This, that, and the third. So hey, good for me. They're back. Come on, they're back. They're not going to. That's why they didn't play last week, so they could be ready for this matchup. I think they have coming up here. It's Carolina. It's a game they have to win. They have to win.
Damn good. Colt McCoy did pretty damn good. I'll give him that.
All right, whatever.
I'll give him that.
With that. Connor is a guy I would definitely keep an eye out. People may want to try to move him because of the fact people are looking to sell high. You could try to go get him, or like Steven said, hold on to him and utilize that skill set for your fantasy roster, flex, whatever you need. And now you have 3 solid backs instead of 2, and that's a great problem to have. So that's a good call, man. I do agree with you there.
And for whatever reason, he's still on the waiver in 18% of ESPN leagues. I don't understand why, but it should be near 95 to 100 when it's all said and done. Obviously, there's those 4 to 16.
He's available in 8% in Yahoo. I'm looking. I have on the one roster that I have him 8%. I'm trying to see when I drafted him, because that was a guy that I was like super. It's like. Now you want to realize, when did you pick him up? It's it's a 12-team league, but it's nice to have. I shouldn't be doing it while we do
all
this,
roses right now. All roses right now.
Oh, here we go. I got it.
So let's transition over here. We're gonna hop into waiver wires before we get to the starts and sits, our glitches and cheat codes of the week. Again,
8.8.
Some very interesting opportunities on the waiver wire this week after some blow-up games. A couple of guys that we've talked about in the past, some newer names that are making their impact known in either this last week or last couple weeks. So let's run right down the gamut. I know that Justin Fields at quarterback was one name that I think we're both very high on, and he's available just about anywhere. when it comes to the percentages across both Yahoo and ESPN. Is there another quarterback name aside from Justin Fields that is intriguing to you to pick up this week?
You brought him up earlier. Jimmy Garoppolo, rostered in only 28% of the leagues. It's surprising to me when I saw that number. But then again, I picked him up Sunday at 12:45 when I was deciding between him, Teddy Bridgewater, and one other quarterback to play for Murray in the one league, And so, yeah, he's out there. He's a guy that I wouldn't be saying he's facing the Rams in week 10. He's just done a pretty good job. At least 23 points in the last two outings versus the Bears and the Cardinals. He's got George Kittle back. Damn, that really made my screen change color. That was wild. But he's got Kittle back. He clearly has that connection with Samuel. Even Brandon Ayuk is starting to come together, and he's a guy that's another waiver player I think you should try to target who is out there, and we can get to him when we get to receivers. But Garoppolo is a guy that I think you may want to try to, if you're streaming quarterbacks or you're in a similar situation with whether it's COVID Cowboy or what have you, he's a player that I would target. There's a couple other quarterbacks that you really could kind of go after. If Trevor Lawrence is out there with rostered in, about 50% of the league. He twisted his ankle. But he's putting up over 17 fantasy points over the last, I think it was 3 games. So he's coming together. It's another rookie. It's tough, but you're looking to try to fill a gap with respects to your, an injury or bye or what have you. A couple of young bucks you may be able to get, or an old guy like Ben Roethlisberger, who, that wasn't necessarily fantastic, but he's out there, and as you saw last night, is able to still sling it and put up some points when they need to. So, and he's got the weapons.
Absolutely. Going up against Detroit, I really like Big Ben this week as a plug-and-play option.
Yep.
If you do need to start somebody up there. As we all know, Detroit's defense, Detroit in general, not looking too hot there. By any means for what they have on the table. Another guy, I go back and forth with him almost weekly, but the way that his schedule is setting up here down the stretch, I really, really like it. That's Mac Jones. He hasn't really been that great the last couple weeks going up against the Chargers and the Panthers, but now he gets the Browns, then he gets the Falcons, and then he gets the Titans. And those are 3 passing defenses that really aren't that great. So the opportunity is there for him to turn things around. Not as high on him as some of the other options, like you mentioned, Jimmy G and Roethlisberger, and even Teddy Bridgewater, who I think is currently around 25% rostership.
I left him off my list because I streamed him last week and he fucked me. So I was like, I'm not going to shout him out at all. So I just said, screw that.
Hey, they had a hell of a game against the Cowboys.
The week before that, he didn't do all that well. So yeah. Whatever. Couldn't walk and chew gum that game, so fucking dead to me.
Anger.
Just kidding. What are you gonna do? That's what the weed's for. But who's listening?
But there's definitely some decent matchups. Not necessarily guys that you want to rely on for the remainder of the year at quarterback, but at least plug and play options for week 10 to get you through any bumps in the road. If you got guys like Joe Burrow that are starting on your roster, or if anything else were to come up, Aaron Rodgers doesn't play again for all we know. He said he's dropping hints there might not play. Oh, I don't know. I don't want to hear.
Rodgers is playing.
I'm annoyed. I am
that fucking
annoyed.
that fucking jerk. Sorry, I was going to say inappropriate things on the live radio.
You're already there.
So, but no, he said it today that I should be cleared on Saturday with the intentions of playing on Sunday. Sang a much different tune after he fucking took all the tongue lashings that he deserved after he went on McAfee show on Friday. And then he came on and was all apologetic and more about other people than himself. Imagine that. You fucking clearly looked in a mirror over the weekend, but nonetheless, I fucking gets me so frustrated.
Good times.
Fuck that.
Good
cool.
times.
John Wick. And he got fined like $15,000. Oh, fucking boy. Thanks, Raj. You're doing a fucking bang up job. Not to mention the fucking referees that suck a fucking fart out of my rear end right now.
So much anger.
You were there. I don't know how you didn't run on the field and tackle somebody.
I did. You didn't see the extremes of it until you got back and saw the replay and saw the broadcast and the ESPN guys talking about how bad it was, and then you're just like, what?
That illegal block. I mean. Whatever. I mean, I got fucking yelled at because I was yelling in the living room. I had woke up Cannon upstairs and Charlie came. It was just, I was waking everybody up. I was so.
Way to go. Way to go,
what?
Dad.
Matt Nagy does that shit to me, and then the Bears do that to me. And then I stood up the whole second half. That's how you know you're in the, it was one of those moments where you're in your living room, just standing up in front of the TV, just watching. It's like, oh my God, let's go, but hey.
Absolutely.
Fantasy. Where are we? Running backs on the waiver wire?
Yeah, let's talk running backs.
Okay. Who do you got?
Jordan Howard is still
not
that noticed on fantasy rosters, and I'm not sure why, because for the second straight week he's scored a touchdown and he's gotten a decent amount of carries. This is production that you need to take advantage of, especially in such a shallow position, or what's turned into a shallow position over the course of the year. He's going to get at least one more game with these opportunities. And it's up against Denver. Denver's defense has been relatively decent, but you can't go wrong with the fact that he's getting this production and he's getting these opportunities. One other guy I'll plug in here as well, Dante Foreman. I think he's probably going to be getting some more opportunities.
100%.
For the Titans here. He looked the best out of all of their running backs, all of their options, including Adrian Peterson, even though he vultured that touchdown at the end of the game. I mean, he looked solid. I want to see more out of Dante Foreman. Even during his time when he was drafted to the Texans, he was showing promise, and then he decided to be a moron and get into legal trouble, and then he got cut. And then he floated around with the Colts, and now he's here with the Titans. The accountability, I think, is there now, and the opportunity is definitely there now because the Titans are in a prime position to still make the playoffs. And they're going to need somebody, and Foreman could end up being that guy. And so those are my two for the week at running back.
He's 25 years old. He's a young kid. He's only been in the league 4, like you said, and it's like he had some spurts with the Texans where you were like, wow. He's a guy, he could do something, spelling David Johnson or whoever it was when he got hurt. Not David Johnson, Andre, the running back there, their top back. I forget. Miller. Not Andre Miller. It's regards. Oh, Jesus.
Lamar Miller.
Thank you very much. All right. So, I mean, that's 4 years ago. So he was a rookie back then, but I got a couple guys for you, and I like your choices. Jordan Howard. It's nice to just say that name. Makes Phil happy. It makes Phil happy too. Speaking of Phil, we're on it. TTNL family will be live tomorrow night at 8:30 Eastern. We have some special guests lined up for you, so please tune on YouTube or any streaming platform to check us out. Not us, but them, as I'll be in the background getting made fun of. But hey, what are you going to do?
It's a weekly thing.
Yes. My two running backs, though, I like Devonta Freeman in Baltimore. Rostered right now in about 65% of the league. So if he's a guy, he's still out there. I think he's somebody you can get. He's finding pay dirt. He's basically he's getting touches and he's getting in the end zone. And while he may not be, knocking the door down and being a top 10 running back, he's a guy that I think you can look for in an emergency or a pinch where you definitely need a starter because of a bye or an injury, or you're scrambling, do what you have to do. Le'Veon Bell is still available too, but I think he's the guy in Baltimore that is going to be continuing to be their go-to. Everyone else is kind of fallen off. And another guy that I think is kind of a sleeper is over with the yin and to the yang of Michael Carter over with the Jets is Ty Johnson, rostered in 20% of the league. He has been back-to-back weeks where he has he's done pretty well. He's had 15 catches in 2 weeks. I think he's somebody to keep an eye on. He won't cost you much money. But he will definitely be scooped up. Someone will make a claim on him because he's produced. And with people looking for running backs and points, guys like that don't last long. And that's why he's up on the list for a lot of people. If you look around the intro web trying to find information, you should be here watching so you can get that information. But yeah, those are the two guys on the running back side that I kind of think you could snipe. You took one of my guys, so I had to come up with another one on the fly.
I know Johnson's honestly, I believe 4 straight weeks in half PPR leagues in double-digit scoring. So I mean, 4 straight weeks of that. You got to start paying attention to those guys and what they're bringing up here. So really, really do like that one. He's a very sneaky play because I don't think he's really among the top of anybody's radar in terms of bolstering, the back end of that bench if you do need that running back help down the stretch. Yeah. So do like that play as well there. Wide receiver, who we got?
Speaking of, I just want to address Paul's question here. Drop 2. I'm dropping Julio Jones, and I'm probably going to drop Christian Kirk. But out of those 4, who are you dropping? Julio, Marvin Jones, Christian Kirk, or Van Jefferson? For those that are just listening.
I want to say Julio. I
have to cut Julio. He stinks.
I can't get behind. I mean, the last couple of games have been bad. They've just been bad, and you think, okay, he'll turn it around, and he just hasn't. So Julio, did
they try? And I'll say this: Stafford forced the ball to Van Jefferson in that game.
Yeah, he does.
They were definitely trying to get him the rock, and he had a ton of targets. And in that offense, I mean, that's what you want. So it just didn't necessarily give you the results. But I'm thinking Kirk and Julio on my side. What about you?
Depending on the severity of Lawrence's injury, and that's going to be the thing to keep an eye on. I don't know if I trust CJ Beathard to get Marvin Jones the ball.
They said he's fine. That's why I brought him up as one of my stream plays for quarterback, is I read that he's going to be all right. He's, that was just a low ankle sprain. He's a gamer, dude. I think if a high ankle sprain, I'd be worried, but.
Yeah, I think I have to agree with you on Kirk too.
Yeah. Got D-Hop back.
But he had such a great game on Sunday.
I know.
Like that's the problem. I don't know. I hate the boom bust of Marvin Jones. I don't know what it is, but like he's irritated me back to his Bengals days with just how inconsistent he's. I'm saying Marvin Jones. I can't deal with the inconsistencies. Jones and Jones. Cut the law firm or whatever you want to call him.
I like it. I'm just looking up his numbers because I have Marvin.
They haven't been great lately. I don't
5.1 on 5 targets, 8 targets against Seattle in week 8, 8.5 points. They had a bye week 7. Week 6, he had his 10 targets for 7 catches, 100 yards, and a tutter for 23. And then he was 3.5, 5.4. And then he was 12, 17, and 18.
He's just so volatile.
Yeah, he's definitely up and down for sure.
Great best ball play. But
okay.
I don't know.
Then you might have just talked me out of that. Maybe I'm keeping Kirk, and we'll go John. All right. So this is why we talk it out. This is how things should be done. You may not see eye to eye, but you communicate. You use your words, and you don't lie, right, Aaron? And then So, anywho, we're talking wide receivers.
Yeah, who we got?
Ooh, let me get to my little cheat sheet here because I don't remember who we were just talking about. Well, I brought him up earlier. Brandon Nyuk, rostered 50% of the league. He had his breakout week 9 against the Cardinals. And then he had 6 catches, 89 yards, and a touchdown. He's got 15 targets in his past 2 games. This is what we saw as a rookie. These were the types of numbers. He only had 1 game with more than 10 PPR points prior to facing the Cardinals. So it's been a long time coming, as we've talked about. But he's now a weekly play, I think, for fantasy. I think he's a guy that you're going to want to try to invest in down the stretch here to get you to the playoffs. he's just one of the players that I kind of like in this situation. And it equated to my whole feeling about Jimmy G. I like the stack. I've always done that. It's just, that kind of, if you could get a nice little stack at this point in the game, not bad. Might cost you a little bit of bread, but it could pay off for you and get you to the playoffs, or even kind of get you to where you need to be and make you win you some money this year. And, it'd be nice to hear from some people at the end of the season, and maybe some of our moves actually paid off. And then the last guy is Elijah Moore. It's his time. We've talked about Rashad Bateman so much. I want to switch because he's another dude. I could just continue to pound that drum because he is each week he's increasing just a little bit, and not like huge numbers in terms of production, but he's better each week. He's just getting those reps with Lamar. But no, I definitely like Elijah Moore. It's a guy that I targeted, late in my own drafts. But, with that being said, Corey Davis has been crap. He's supposed to be back week 10, but 6 targets in the last 3 games. That means 18 targets in the last 3 games, and that's awesome, I think. And you're seeing that with the points there, especially last week. He was up I think he had like 32.8 points. That's awesome.
Yeah, he had a hell of a game, and just watching the separation that he was getting past the Colts secondary was something to behold, and I think it really opened a lot of eyes just based on the overall snap counts that Moore has been getting lately, which hasn't necessarily been the most promising thing out there, but again, I mean, you can't doubt what type of production he's getting on the field. So you had Ayuk, you had Moore and Bateman.
I was gonna say Bateman just because, but I said him last week also. So yeah. I left him. I just kind of brought him up. So maybe I cheated, and I just kind of was like my 2B. No, but okay. I like those 2 guys. A guy that, and I just want to piggyback you from last week, was Agnew. I thought that was a great guy that you suggested. Wasn't it Agnew, or is that 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, no, it was Agnew. He's just sneaky, and the point that he is going to be the slot guy for the Jaguars, which still doesn't make any sense to me. They put him there, and it should be Laviska, but they're not going to use Laviska.
Yeah, he's a guy you should cut, by the way.
The pain.
Yeah. So who do you have for wide receivers, Mr. Johnson?
I really like Donovan Peoples-Jones with Cleveland. He might not get the hefty amount of targets that you want out of a wide receiver, but at the same time, he has that breakaway speed, and we saw it on display in a 60-yard touchdown from Baker Mayfield against the Bengals on Sunday. Those opportunities are going to stay there, and apparently Baker can still whip it down the field and get it done. And so there is that opportunity for him to really get things going there. I'm going to throw out a name that has burned people. Week 8 definitely burned with a goose egg, but Russell Gage needs to be rostered. End of story. Needs to be rostered as long as Calvin Ridley is out. He is rostered in just 16% of leagues out there. Came away with a 7 for 64 performance against New Orleans. Now comes up against Dallas, has Jacksonville, Tampa, and San Francisco, and Detroit on the back end among the games left.
That's
and so the
time.
Opportunities are there for Russell Gage to be a solid performer down the stretch if you do need a wide out there. I still don't know what happened against Carolina that he couldn't catch a pass, but the fact that he bounced back the way that he did and he got the targets from Matt Ryan, I think he's going to be the guy that's going to step into that role that will help get some of the attention off of Kyle Pitts, because obviously defenses are really honing in there, but go get Russell Gage.
Keep throwing to Patterson.
Yep. Or Patterson too. You got
question for you. Do you have his targets for the goose egg there in front of you? Do you know how many targets he had?
He had 0 targets.
Oh, he didn't even get open. He didn't even get a look.
He didn't even get a look. It was just a straight up goose egg in that game. So before that, Miami, he had a 4-catch, 67-yard game and a rushing touchdown. And then New Orleans having the 7 for 64 for 10 yards and half PPR leagues there. So opportunity is there. The opportunity is there. So you got to take it. Tight end, it's a pretty shallow pool. once
Someone
again,
coming back from injury, though. There's a guy, I think
That's-
you got Logan Thomas coming back. I
Yep.
think he's a guy you could target at, rostered 50% of the leagues. They were hoping he'd come back week 10. It looks like, coming back for that week 10 matchup. Out since week 4 with a hammy, though, so I'm hoping he was the dude, where he was leading in fantasy points, I think, for the first 2 weeks. I could be completely wrong, but I think it was either him or Gronk. But for the, I think he had 11 catches for 121 yards or whatever it was. I don't know if you have it in front of you, but
trying to pull it up.
Okay, but yeah, no, I like Logan Thomas. He's got Tampa, Seattle, Vegas, Dallas twice, Philly twice in that week's 10 to 17. So long term, he's a top priority, I think, for fantasy in terms of tight end. I think he's a guy you should go try to get.
Yep. And one guy I know we talked about from a Bears perspective. Wow, Justin Fields.
Cole Kmet.
Cole Kmet, yeah. I was relatively surprised with his 6-catch, 87-yard game. And he broke out and had some really impressive catches down the field to the point where it's like, okay, is he finally figuring it out? And I think, like we had mentioned earlier, the fact that, Justin's taking off with the ball and it's kind of isolating that linebacker that's normally on Kmet, that's only going to help him moving forward. That's only going to be a positive for him. I'm almost there with wanting to trust him and put a roster spot for him.
Fields clearly does. I mean, he's somebody he looks to quite often, and I think just from that perspective, I think that's a good point, Stephen. I think Cole is a guy that he was trending last week after that, that little blip on the radar for fantasy relevance. And then after last week, it looked like, hey, just imagine if he had those reps in the, preseason, and all that other, and what he could be doing with Cole and Allen Robinson and the gang. But I think I like your Cole Kmet pick there at tight end. What's he rostered in for leagues here?
Oh, you would do that to me.
I thought you had it right. I'm an asshole. I'm sorry, Mr. Johnson.
No, Yahoo 20, ESPN 13.
Okay. So Jesus, he's available, basically.
Right, yeah, he is available. And another guy who's available, and I'm going to continue to beat this drum, and Pat Freiermuth. He's still under 40%. 41 on Yahoo, 33 on ESPN, and then he comes out and busts out another big week against the Bears, unfortunately against the Bears. But again, you can't go wrong with that type of production, and the fact that Big Ben continues to stare him down and give him the opportunity to score. It's only going to get better down the stretch here for the rookie. So as long as he's under 50%, I'm going to continue beating that drum.
You should. You definitely should. And he looked like the guy last night,
Yep, absolutely.
I might have picked him to score a touchdown or two in the old FanDuel. Might have cashed in on that a little bit. So hey,
there you go,
Mr.
Get some lunch money for the day.
Just for the next Thursday night game to just waste. But whatever. What are you gonna? $10
That's
here,
how it always goes.
There. Hey, what are you gonna do?
Exactly.
Starts and what do you got? Some glitches and cheat codes? What do you want to do?
Yeah, let's do some glitches and cheat codes. We'll wrap it up here with the starts and sits of the week in week number 10. That is right. It is glitches and cheat codes, our version of starts and sits. We'll start at the top and make our way down. We'll start with quarterback. Who you got?
Well, we talked about him earlier. A guy that I've been kind of streaming a little bit, Carson Wentz, to start over Teddy Bridgewater. These guys at this point, when we do this too, Stephen, I always try to get these level playing field. I feel like these two are right there. They both throw to the other teams a lot and they still get some fantasy points, but Wentz seems to be doing it at a higher level at this point. He's a guy that I'm looking to start. I like Wentz. He's helped me get some W's in one of my leagues with my high school buddies recently. So it's kind of nice to just make that move and see him do well. So that's my start sit little conundrum at the quarterback spot. And I'm curious to see who you're thinking about.
So starting wise, this definitely lies on a game script situation, and really you look at the past and what he had going on in their matchup last year in the playoffs. That he was actually relatively decent. That's Taylor Heineke going up against Tampa Bay this weekend. He had over 300 yards in their playoff matchup and a couple of touchdowns. Relatively the same defense, and obviously we've seen Heineke control games and put up some decent scoring lines against some pretty tough defenses. So I do like the stretch there, especially in DFS as well. If you're looking to save some cash and play elsewhere, that he might be able to put up some decent numbers against the Tampa Bay secondary that's been so with what they've had going on so far this year. As for the sit, I liked how he came out on Sunday and beat up the Bengals, but I think Baker Mayfield is going to hit a wall against the Patriots. There's just something about it I don't like. And again, we don't know how severe that injury is. If Chubb sits because of the COVID situation, they're going to have to rely probably more on his arm. And I don't think they're going to be able to get it done against New England by any means there. So not the biggest fan in that regard for that matchup. Running back. I don't want to go back to the well, but I'm going to go back to the well. The Washington Buccaneers game, Leonard Fournette, you got to keep pushing this guy every step of the way with what he has going for him on the field. Like Taylor Heineke is going to be in a position to be passing the ball 24/7. Tampa's going to be running the ball 24/7 because they should get out to a pretty quick lead. And Washington really isn't anything to write home about in terms of their run defense. So really do think that the opportunity is there for him to stack, 15 carries and potentially get north of 100 yards against that Redskins defense that has not stepped up whatsoever this year. As for the sits, I'm going to play a hybrid here. Carlos Hyde or James Robinson. I'm not necessarily sure who's going to be the play there, but depending on if Robinson is back, the Indy defense is nothing you really want to mess with, and especially if the Jacksonville offense continues to flounder like they have, even though they somehow pulled a win out of their ass against the Bills last week. I don't think the opportunity is there for the running game to get going whatsoever with Jacksonville going up against the Colts.
All right. Well, I'll make it quick. I think are there any, let me ask you this, any wide receivers that you'd like to start right off, while you have it right in front of you?
Oh,
just give me your start at wide receiver.
Wide receiver.
I'll give you a sit.
Hunter Renfrow. I like Hunter Renfrow against the Kansas City Chiefs. Okay. That's my start.
I took an easy way out, and I'm just going to follow that. I said sit Robbie Anderson. I said it last week also. I think he's a guy that we were hoping that was just kind of fake news and that Robbie Anderson was actually going to produce with Sam Darnold. I think it's just they're fucked in Carolina. And I think in regards to DJ Moore is getting the same treatment. So it's not like one guy is benefiting from the other. PJ Walker is no better for either wide receiver. Christian McCaffrey's coming back, so it's going to cut into that production too. My start at wide receiver, though, I like Rashad Bateman. I talk about him all the time. He's a guy that I think is turning into he needed a wide receiver. The Ravens needed a wide receiver too next to Hollywood. I think they got it. I didn't know if they were going to try to jump into the OBG sweepstakes, OBJ, not OBG, but he's a guy that I think if you desperately need another wide receiver, he's a guy that's still kind of out there, which is kind of crazy. But at this point, he should be rostered, and he probably should be starting. I think he's the second best rookie wide receiver at this point behind Jamar Chase. I'm just going to give you real quick my running backs. Start Devin Singletary. I think they're going to be pissed off coming in against the Jets. I think they're going to want to pound, they're going to pound that rock. I think and if they get up on them, they're going to end up having, they're going to run the ball. Everybody was high on Zach Moss. That's who they wanted. But I think Devin Singletary's the play. He's rushing more better. His statistics show that he is definitely demonstrating the Bills are going more with him over the last 2 weeks. He was splitting snap. He played 48 out of the 67 snaps in week 9, ran 35 routes, which I think is extremely important because it shows that he's not just getting the running game. He's also getting involved in the passing game as well. And then my sit in the running backs is don't take the fool's gold with respects to Mr. McNichols with the Titans. Don't get involved. Stay away. If anything, you can play AP, but Dante Foreman is another guy. But sit McNichols regardless. If you grabbed him, I'm sorry, you just gambled wrong and lost. Yeah, you could probably cut him and move on. So I kind of rattled off all that shit, so I apologize. But I just kind of trying to get through it. So we can kind of wrap up here.
I'll plug a wide receiver sit as well here. That being Cortland Sutton. My guess is Darius Slay is the guy that's on Sutton on Sunday, and you don't want to go up against Darius Slay this year. He has been so damn good at defending opposing wide receivers and shutting down wide receivers that whoever that he ends up following around the field, like I said, probably going to be Sutton because Judy likes to sneak inside every once in a while. Not going to be a solid play there, and taking off that long ball that the Broncos can try and throw those 50-50 up to Sutton in that game. Tight ends, not a ton that really sticks out to me.
Start Pat Freiermuth. How about that?
That's a simple one. Yeah. Take the low-hanging fruit. I agree with you there. The other one that I think has the opportunity to turn around as well. Dan Arnold been beating that drum for quite a while as well. Going to be a dump off situation. My guess is the Colts are going to jump out to an early lead, similar to what they did against the Jets last week as well. As far as a sit, I'm not really feeling the Zach Ertz thing anymore. I think that's kind of ran its course with Carolina in terms of fantasy relevancy. So I'm not, and really Carolina's secondary has been pretty solid. So there really isn't much there, I think, that you can rely on unless you're really going for the Hail Mary throw in terms of that position.
Yeah, you took my sit. Another guy I guess would maybe be Troutman over in with the Saints, just not putting up the numbers. He had his season week 9. I think it was like 5.9 points. I just kind of stay away. I do like that little Schultz bounce back. Cowboys got a game, they're playing against the Falcons. You could definitely see that, here in week 10. But yeah, there's tight ends though. You can make some money there. There's some players, but this is my guy right here, Patterson. That's my guy. He's taking me. I told you before Henry went down, I made a quick trade, landed him, and he got me a nice W, kept me on top of the standings in one of my leagues. So I'm a big CP fan, just like Matt Nagy was.
Yeah, they can't re-sign him. They can't, utilize him properly.
That's what they do in Chicago. They utilize players' strengths, right?
Killing me, man. Killing me, absolutely. Oh, man. Oh, well. Maybe someday we'll have a coach.
Week 10 is here.
Week 10 is here, and hopefully we get a little bit of a break from the Bears side of things, focus on the fantasy side of things here for this week until all Beardom continues back in week number 11. But we'll see what happens. There's a lot of unknown now. There's been, again, more injuries, more just chaos, and that's really been the theme of 2021 so far.
Oh shit! But Chubb has COVID. He still may be eligible to play on Sunday. Just to throw that out there, another
Ernest
player.
Johnson might want to go grab him.
Yep.
Just get the the cover there.
Because Kareem Hunt is still out on the IR, and speaking of, with Thursday night football coming up, Thursday is also November 11th, which is also Veterans Day.
Absolutely.
So just to any veteran or current or, former or a veteran, I just want to say thank you for keeping our freedoms where they are and keeping us safe at home. As a family man, I can't be more appreciative for all the sacrifices that the men and women make for our country around the world. So, happy Veterans Day, and here's to you.
Couldn't have said it any better myself, man. You got the words there.
Yeah, I'm trying here. You got the stats, I got the words. It's a good combination, Mr. Johnson.
Perfecto.
Yes, sir.
All right, well, that's going to do it here for this week on One Up Fantasy. Again, salute all the veterans out there in this Veterans Day coming up in just a couple of days. Enjoy the week. Enjoy the weekend of football. Hopefully all of your fantasy teams win. Unless you're playing one of us, then no. Just no. But nevertheless, we'll be back next Tuesday night, same time, same place, 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central on ChiCitySports.com and the Tape Never Lies Network with more One Up Fantasy. So have a wonderful rest of the week, and we will see you next week. Take care, everybody.
Take care, everybody.